Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and on behalf of Trina, Chase's mom, I know she's going to stand up here. Hopefully we'll get her to say something, but I'm sure she appreciates everybody having taken some time and come out for this important event to bring some public awareness to what it is we're trying to do. When I was running for office 4 years ago, I ran on a model of a three-pronged approach to dealing with drugs in our community. The first prong was education and prevention, because it seemed to make sense that everybody we can keep out of this trouble is one less person we got to help. And then the second prong was diversion and treatment. And I'm a strong believer in that as your district attorney. I actually am the representative from my office to the Cortland Treatment Court. But the final prong is enforcement and prosecution. And that's what we're talking about today. When Trina came to see me in my office, it got to be an all too familiar event in my office, having to console parents who've lost yet another child to an overdose. And me having to tell them that currently the laws in this state are insufficient for me to be able to go after those who've supplied those drugs. And Trina wasn't taking that lying down, and she said, well, what can we do about it? And so for the next hour, I went through what I thought were some ways that we could engage our state legislature. Fortunately, in my past, I've worked in the state legislature, and I've been able to make some contacts through this position that I hold to look at some laws that have been introduced. Unfortunately, were not successfully passed, but that we can reintroduce, bring public awareness to these issues, and hopefully get the support in Albany that's needed to get laws passed that allow district attorneys to pursue drug dealers for the harm that they're causing to individuals and families and our communities. Quite frankly, they're destroying our communities. In this particular case, what Chase was using was laced with fentanyl. It's unfortunate, but today we are not seeing too many drugs that aren't somehow touched by fentanyl. And it's a problem for a lot of reasons. So much so that even our local law enforcement agencies, when they come upon a scene, they've got to be very careful about what they even interact and touch so that officers don't get accidentally overdosed. It's here, and we need some strong legislation to help us address it and let these people know, these drug dealers know, that we're not going to stand for it as citizens in these communities, and we're going to hold them accountable. I don't know how you want to work. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I could answer. I will say that we've already reached out to our own member of Assembly, Anna Kellis, who represents the city portion of Cortland County, as well as Virgil and Hartford. I will be meeting with her on March 15th. I've reached out to Senator Akshar, who's down in Binghamton, and we've reached out to Senator Hinchey. Senator Hinchey is the successor to Senator Amendor, who originally sponsored the drug dealer legislation. He's since resigned, and now we're going to see if Senator Hinchey wants to take up where he left off and reintroduce this bill. And hopefully we'll get it onto the governor's desk, hopefully by June. It's a long road, but I'm committed to doing what's necessary, and I ask for your support and support Trina and the family to help us get this enacted, because it's long overdue and it's something that we're going to need.
Could you just explain the sponsored part?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm doing a lot of education here.
Yeah.
In order to get a bill passed into law, it has to be sponsored in one of the two houses, either the Senate or the Assembly. A bill that doesn't involve money, expenditures of money, and this is one of those types of bills, can start in either house. But it has passed the Senate before, so common sense suggests that that's a good place to start. It's also good to start with the prior sponsors. Unfortunately, as I just said, one has resigned or retired, and so you go to their successor to see if they're still interested in it as an issue for their legislative district and if they'll sponsor. Senator Hinchey, as I said, I'm going to be speaking with her soon, but Senator Akshar, who was a sponsor in the past, has said he is committed to sponsoring it here in the future. So we know Senator Akshar is there in support, and I believe that our own senator, Senator Oberacher, who's also new, will also be in support of this legislation. So we have some area support from our legislators, but it's a very tricky thing working through the politics of the legislature. The legislature is controlled by members of the Democratic Party, so it's always best to be reaching out to members who control that legislative body to seek your sponsorship. So that's where we're starting, both with the Senate and the Assembly. Assemblywoman Kellis is a Democrat. That house is controlled by the Democrats, and she represents this area. So again, it's a good place to start. But you can't get a bill passed with just a few votes. You need to gain support and collaboration, and so we certainly will be reaching out. To me, this is such a common sense bill that it's something that should transcend party lines. Party affiliations shouldn't make a difference here, but we understand the realities of legislation, and so we'll work smart so that we can get it done, but we'll be seeking support from members of both parties.
And maybe bail reform, explain to them about bail reform.
Okay. Wow, we're going to cover the whole gamut. Okay. Bail reform occurred, I don't even like to call it bail reform. Reform suggests that there was a problem with the bail law the way it was. The change in the bail law was enacted in 2019. It became effective January 1, 2020. The idea behind it, to some degree, makes sense. The idea is that when somebody is accused of a crime, they still enjoy the presumption of innocence. And so, being presumed innocent, why should they be locked up? There's a practical effect, though, when people who are charged with fairly serious drug possession, drug sale charges cannot be held in pretrial detention, which is currently the state of the law right now. When they can't be held in pretrial detention, then they're processed and they're simply released back into the public. I can tell you in our community, we have people accumulating 4, 5, 6 files in some cases, without us being able to even have adjudicated the first case. And the intent was that maybe people who need help with drug addiction will get it. I can tell you as your district attorney, the one person who's put more people into drug rehabilitation in your county is your undersheriff when he was your jail administrator. Because when people finally got detained and they were in jail and had a chance to be detoxified and get sober and they realized they needed some help, that's when they sought help. Nowadays, since we can't hold people for drug possession and drug sale, pretrial detention, they continue to go on, they continue to use, they don't seek help, and so these programs that we have in this community, and I got to tell you, we've got a lot of great programs in this community. We are really blessed in that regard. We have resources to help people, but we don't have the ability to funnel them into those programs the way we used to. I'm not saying that jail's the answer to everything. Please don't take my statements to mean that. But it was a resource that was useful for us to identify people and then connect them with the evaluations necessary to get them into services. In fact, I'll put a plug here in for Alex. Alex has got a table set up over here, and she's got Narcan available, and she can give you a quick primer about how to administer Narcan if you come upon somebody who may be in distress and require it. In fact, if you want to come up here, Alex, you know more about it than I do. Alex and I, our paths intersect quite a bit. She can tell you how committed my office is to getting people into treatment. But we see each other at events all the time. Why don't you come over here where it's
a little more solid ground. Thank you very much.
Sure.
My name is Alexandra Mikowski. I'm with Cortland Prevention Resources and Family and Children's Counseling Services, normally formerly known as Family Counseling Services or the Blue Roof. So
Which isn't blue anymore.
which isn't blue anymore because we moved into an old corset factory, which was very fun. So my job is all about trying to get people what they need. Half my job is literally going out, meeting with people if they want detox, inpatient, whatever. We call with them, we get them there. The other half of my job is all about prevention, so trying to work with kids, families, communities, with the hope that people don't ever get to a situation where they have problematic use, because just too many people are dying. I think that's evidenced here, but by all the people that have your own stories, that have your own reasons for being here at this moment. We're so lucky that back in October, our agency decided to take the lead around Narcan distribution. The health department was doing a great job, but they've been overwhelmed with this whole COVID thing. And so we decided we were going to be the ones to go out and do it. So we're doing pop-up events. We go out to neighborhoods where the local law enforcement tells us there was an overdose. We go to the address where the person overdosed and all the neighbors around there to try to offer support. So Narcan, no cost, sent to us by the state, can save people's lives. Doesn't interact with any other substance. It's really simple. You take it out of the packaging, put it in their nose, press the red plunger, that's it. So please reach out. The other really interesting thing that we do together is the Angel program. So if someone decides, you know what, I've had enough, I need help right now, they can go to the Cortland City Police Department and turn themselves in and say like, hey, I need help. They'll make sure they don't have any wants or warrants, so they didn't, evade a, parking ticket 3 years ago when there's some bench warrant or something there. They then call us. We work with the person to get them up to the Regional Open Access Center up in Syracuse, where they can get them into detox, get them into inpatient, whatever they need. And then the DA is nice enough to make sure that they get into treatment and they don't get charges from what they have on them. So it's nice that at any moment, and we've gotten calls at 2 a.m. that somebody's turned themselves in, or 10 a.m., it doesn't matter. The system is sometimes hard to navigate, but this is one easy way to go from I need help to I'm going to get help. So get trained in Narcan.
So how long, you were telling me that it's like a 10-minute thing and they can go away with the Narcan bag?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, exactly. So the question is, how long does it take to get trained in Narcan? Answer, 5 to 10 minutes. If you already know what Narcan is, I also just go, here you go, here's a kit. For people that have more questions, we can talk more. We also do a virtual training, Mondays at 3 and Wednesdays at noon. All the information is on the Healing Portland website and Facebook page. And yeah, super simple, and you can save a life. It doesn't interact with any other medicine or diagnosis with people that it's actually a diabetic crisis, but the family members were nervous, gave them Narcan. It doesn't interact. Common side effects are a runny nose because you just sprayed something up your nose. And if it is an overdose, then that feeling of dope sick, because you're all of a sudden going from too much opiate, which is suppressing your body's ability to breathe, to beat your heart, those kind of things.
But you're alive.
But you're alive, and then there's a second chance. So the second chance is not just for the person that's overdosed, it's also for the family, for the neighbors, for the coworkers, because we know recovery happens. Every day I get to talk to people that last year they were a hot mess, and they figured out how to put their lives together. What does recovery mean to them? So I thank you all for coming out and allowing me.
The test strips, are you guys looking at getting the test strips for Portland?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, so the question is about fentanyl test strips, I'm guessing was the question. Yeah, so we just got, which is awesome, 100 test strips for fentanyl. So we're figuring out a way to actively hand those out to clients, but we also have them at pop-up events so they can test their cooker or other place that they have the drug to see if there's fentanyl in it, with the hope that people decide, ooh, this is a bad batch. I'm not going to take this.
So does the strip just do the one time, or
One time.
and you only got 100 of them? So you, I mean,
Yeah. So
but you're looking to get more.
yeah, that's always the challenge. Is much of this world is all about grants.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of advocates, and that's why we have free Narcan from the state, is because a lot of people spoke up and said, we need this in our community. I think fentanyl's, kind of the next thing, that we need more test strips. So that way people can know every time what they're using. And also hopefully if they find out that there's fentanyl in things, to tell their friends, ooh, watch out for that. Don't use that alone, or use much less than you were intending, so that way you can hopefully stay alive. So yeah, so like us on Facebook, do awesome things. Thank you very much.
And I got one more question for you.
Okay, one more question. All right. Hopefully I have one more answer.
If you could just let everybody know, I mean, because this bill is going to take a long time. It's not something that's fast and easy and go through. So everybody needs to stay, active on it. But what are things you see that we as a community can do to kind of help? I mean, it's not going to go away.
Certainly. Yeah.
Some things to kind of help.
Sure. What Trina's asked is what as a community can we do to help move this bill along? And the one thing I would tell you is that you need to engage with your state legislators. For Cortland County, that would be Senator Peter Oberacker, and if you live in Virgil, Cortlandville, and the city of Cortland and Hartford, that would be member of the Assembly Anna Kellis. And if you live anywhere else in the county of Cortland, that would be member of the Assembly John Lamondes. You need to contact them. In fact, if you just Google New York State Assembly or New York State Senate, they'll come up with the members there, and they'll even have a link right to their websites with their email addresses. And you just need to be, the old adage that our grandmothers told us, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You need to be that squeaky wheel and be constant. The more people you can get involved, also, the better. Tell your friends, tell your family members that they need to get on these websites as well, and let your elected representatives know that this is a bill you want to see enacted into law. A kind of a fallback measure is that you can contact your county legislators. Your county legislators, they don't vote in Albany, obviously, but when your state legislators come to your community and they say, what can we do to help? If your local county legislators are telling them, pass this bill, that also helps, because they do. They come here and they talk to your county legislators. They're one of the primary sources they engage with on the local level. And if these are the people that they're engaging with and they're telling them that this is a bill that needs to be law, it helps it along all the more. One thing that Trina has undertaken to do is that this bill that we're trying to get passed, it's been called Lurie's Law, because in 2017, Lurie Lincoln Farrell, a young lady in Capital District area of the state, had a similar fate as Chase. She died of an overdose, and her mother, who was a police detective in Albany, is doing exactly what Trina's doing now. Unfortunately, Lurie's mother has passed due to cancer, but her aunt has undertaken this effort, and so the two camps are talking together. The more groups we have like this in the state that coordinate with one another and bring this issue to Albany, again, the more likely we're going to get this bill passed. That being said, wouldn't want anybody to lose heart. I've worked in the legislature before. It is seldom that a bill ever gets passed in a single year. Many times the first year is bringing attention to the issue. I hope that's not the case here, and I wouldn't say go in half-hearted. You certainly want to get it passed this year, but it is a marathon. The key is to engage with the right people and make sure that your local elected officials are talking to your state representatives to get this through. I certainly will be talking to them. Fortunately, as DA, I do have a direct line with most of these elected officials, and we've been engaging. So that's the thing to do. Contact them, let them know what you want. They do listen to their constituents because that's their job, and they want to get reelected.
What about for on the streets, though? You know what I'm saying? Like if we are seeing something take place.
Yep. If you see something take place, the best thing to do is if you see something, say something. That doesn't mean the police can act right away. They do have to follow the law. They do have to build cases. They do have to investigate. But many times the first witnesses to an event will be people who contacted the police because they saw something in their neighborhood, saw someone in their neighborhood, times, people, places that seem out of order. Those are the kinds of things to look for. If it turns out to be nothing, it may be nothing. But the police will investigate these things. I do have assurances from the lieutenant of detectives for the city police department, and as well the CID lieutenant, criminal investigation division lieutenant for the sheriff's office. So again, see something, say something. It will be investigated. That doesn't mean arrests happen right away, and it doesn't mean that we'll be right back to talk to you that day. But we do take it seriously.
I'd also say too, it should be known too, like as a community, if you want anything to know, is with addicts, you should be more compassionate, or not judgmental, and maybe support system for the community should be for even addicts, because give them a kind word every now and then or something, instead of being so judgmental and stuff, and maybe that could help a little, instead of everyone just brushing them off or just saying rotten, mean things to them and stuff like that. They have problems too, just like everybody else, and everyone's got to work together. So you got to work with the addicts too.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I'll go back and forth.
Yeah, I'll second that, certainly, and that's one of the things that we are trying to do with our treatment court. Alex, as she indicated, with the Angel program, one of the reasons I put forth so much effort in getting that established was for that very issue, to allow people an avenue to get into treatment without having to go through the stigma of being arrested and going through the criminal justice process. So I've committed as DA, if you will come forward, simply go to the city police department, surrender yourself, any drugs that you have, as long as you don't have any arrest warrants or wants for you, we will get you connected to treatment that day. We will have an angel come sit with you, and we will arrange to get you. The trouble that took me so long to get that established wasn't agreement that it was a good idea. It was, how do we get people from here to the primary care provider? Unfortunately, it's up in Syracuse. It's a good care provider, Helio Health. We needed to get them up there. Once we got the transportation piece worked out, which Alex's agency does with us through Cody, which is the Center of Treatment Innovations, we will get you connected to treatment.
So I'm talking as
right.
as
right.
active community or people that live here.
Right.
You go out of their house, and just because they're not an addict or they don't do something or they'll see something, people have something judgmental or something. It's like throw a kind word or something, or offer.
But that's the point too. I'm looking to get
everyone has to work together.
I'm looking to get these people into treatment, not because of the crime, and I'm not going to prosecute them because I'm not interested in prosecuting that crime. The key for us, for Alex and the whole host of people that she and I work with, is that we look at addiction as an illness. And so I'm not interested in punishing people for an illness. I'm interested in getting them into treatment and getting them the help that they need.
Right.
Is there guaranteed beds open with that program? Or do you struggle to find beds open?
No, we will.
No, people wait
for
weeks and weeks.
So the question is, with Helio Health and the Angel program, are there beds available? Helio Health is our walk-in clinic. So yes, there is treatment available. Now, if you're going through treatment court and you're going to do inpatient rehabilitation, there is a wait there to get you into an inpatient facility, because that is a higher level of treatment that usually requires us to put forth effort to find that higher level of care, and there's insurance and costs and things that need to be put in place. But I can tell you that our treatment court coordinator, Julie Nensta, is outstanding at her job. She will find those resources, and we usually don't have people waiting more than 2 weeks to find an available bed.
Any other questions?
I just want to go back to
Sure.
the fentanyl thing. It's not fentanyl.
Say
The mic.
who you are, though.
Vince.
Can you get on the
My
mic?
daughter, Mary Ellen. Roll for me. You guys wrote about it, not you, in Portland Standard.
Okay.
Portland
That
Voice.
is just as deadly as fentanyl, if not more. It's a newer designer drug. Don't be so focused on fentanyl. Fentanyl's going to be worked out. They're making other, more powerful opioid synthetic drugs. And I don't speak for anybody else here. I don't care, like the fact that you said it. I don't want anybody to be arresting the user.
Not interested
That's-
in arresting you.
That's insane. That's not what I'm focused on. And I don't think anybody else. We want this law passed. That's where our focus is at.
Yeah, we want to get the dealer. I'm not interested in prosecuting people who've got an illness.
And maybe more community awareness, like, you know, I myself have seen these addicts
One
on
moment.
the street acting in strange manners, and we turn away from them. We tend to avoid them. And then they go around the corner and they're dead. Maybe if we would engage as in, you know, in the community as people that are supposed to be compassionate of other people, we're human beings. Stop ignoring those people. You might get through to one of them that might need somebody's help, and they're just too scared or lost to ask. And it's just sad.
Well, you know what? It doesn't happen. This is not
Give him the
Fulton
mic.
County. I'm talking about Tompkins County, where the mayor and the councilman, they want to have open injection safe injection sites where you can just go in and shoot up. That's the wrong fucking solution too.
Oh,
I just want to say too that I think a good way, like everyone wants engagement in the community. I know that I graduated from TC3 with my KSAC, and you know, Chase is my cousin, my best friend's dad. I even did not know about this Angel program, and probably a lot of people here don't. And I think just learning about that, you know, we can spread awareness. That's one thing you can do when you see these people who are struggling with addiction, and you know, we see them all the time. You know, they can't control their movements. It's not hard to tell when somebody's high. Just telling them about this program, it might sit in the back of their head, and you know, you never know, they might be ready at that moment or whenever they are. You know, just spread the word about that program specifically.
Don't avoid them because they act weird. There's a reason for that.
And I'm just going to say, with the awareness of the community, like, I knew we had a drug issue in Portland. I didn't know the severity of it until Chase passed away and I started looking into things. And I think there should be avenue where it is, whether it be the Portland Standard, the Portland Voice, whatever it may be, where we are at least monthly, you know, somewhere it's said, okay, we, like the COVID, you know what I'm saying? I understand COVID is at the top of everybody's list, but at least monthly, something published saying, okay, we had this many overdoses where we had to use the Narcan. We had this many overdoses that took a life. We had this many overdoses because we have people in Portland Hospital, they're on life support. They haven't died yet, but they're on life support because they're doing the same, the heroin with the mixture combination. And actually, until I had come to see you that day, I didn't know that Chase was the third death in 11 days until I ran into this gentleman who was down there for the Cortland Voice, and he had said something. So I just think the people need to be more aware of what's going on, so that, like Erica, who's helped me put the event together, she had no clue either. She's like, you know, I have a child. I want to know what's going on. And I was the one that told her that when I went to your office, and the Strangeway said that even the marijuana that's
going through the police department is getting tested and it has fentanyl in it. So the parents that say, oh, my kid only smokes marijuana, if they're getting it off the streets, they're playing Russian roulette. And so the kids need to be educated by the parents, but the parents need to be educated by the community. And I think that would help as well.
Okay. Well, we'll talk later. I got some ideas.
I also think anyone struggling with addiction should share their recovery stories.
Yeah.
Like if somebody has struggled with addiction and they've overcome it, share it. A lot of people are embarrassed, but you never know whose life you can save. It might take just one person, to be successful. They want to hear that somebody who's been, homeless, on the streets, doing these drugs, picked on, made fun of, been on mobile patrol. If they see one person who's gone successful, maybe they just have their own apartment and hold a job. They want to hear that. They don't want to half the time hear it from, people who've never seen the struggle. Sharing your recovery stories is very important.
And parents too, I found with doing this event, I had reached out to ask parents, people if they'd want to share their child's photo and date of death. There's a lot of shame with the parents. Parents don't want to admit that their child overdosed with heroin. Unfortunately, I think everybody's probably been touched by somebody that has addiction in their family, and there shouldn't be no shame. If your child is an addict, which I'm going to say I didn't think Chase was. I think this was a first-time experience for him from his cell phone and all that. But first-time experience with heroin. But parents, I just think parents shouldn't feel ashamed. It happens to our kids. Our job is to get them help if we know about it. And to the friends, this is another thing. Chase had several friends. The friends should be reaching out to the parents if they see that their friend is struggling with an addiction. So in my mind, if Chase had friends that know if he had a heroin problem, they should be reaching out to the parents to let the parents know so that the parents can get with the child, their child, and say, okay, what's going on? Can we fix this? Instead of, oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want Chase to be mad at me or something like that. So I think the friends hold a lot of responsibility. If you know, you should be sharing with somebody because that alone could save a life.
Share it with the talk of the town so you know it's going to get back to the parents. I mean, tell the right people. You can't tell someone that's going to keep it quiet.
Oh. I just want to go on with the whole shame thing. What recently happened at Walmart, how our community shared that around and added to that shame. So as a community, we should be sharing that with the right people, not using social media to, embarrass that person. He might have a daughter, he might have kids, you don't know. Now she's at school getting bullied, ending up in the same system, on the same stuff he's doing or whatever, because as a community, we're sharing that stuff around and adding to that shame. We're not actually helping the problem, we're causing it by shaming people. That's someone's family member, could be a father. I have kids. The last thing I want to see on Facebook, when my daughter becomes a teenager, that she was tweaking out on some drug in the middle of the street and everyone's sharing it around on social media instead of calling me so I could actually get her help.
Commenting, laughing, joking.
Yeah, they shared it around. They literally followed the guy around the store instead of actually getting help. And then they shared it and got all these likes. If you're going to share it and get likes for something like that, do something actually positive about it.
And adding to the story of those little comments, it's horrible.
And this is Mickey. You should introduce yourself anyway.
Sorry.
This is Mickey. He's like Chase's brother. I raised him.
I'm pretty close to it, and it hurts me to know that stuff like this happens, and we have laws that are actually, you can hold a drug company responsible for an overdose, but you can't hold the drug dealer who's already breaking the law responsible. My big issue, this law that we're trying to push is great, but my big issue is that bail reform. How much do these systems work to keep people off these drugs if the drug dealers are able to stand right outside that system, like the safety-free shoot-up zones. Drug dealer could hang right on the corner down the street from that place and be like, hey, I know you just got out, but I got this new stuff in. What does that do to help the system?
And they know their drugs
Nothing.
are killing over.
The bail reform, for me, the bail reform is the big issue because you guys can't effectively do your job.
Right.
You can't hold them in there, so the people that are looking to get help can't keep the help because that guy is knocking right back on their door because you can't keep him in jail long enough to clean the streets.
I agree.
And just one more thing, several times while doing this, and I thought it too until I went and seen Mr. Perfetti, because my first initial contact with the police said, we can't do anything about it because our DA isn't willing to arrest. So when I went to his office at first I was very angry and I said, why aren't you willing to prosecute these people? And that's when he sat and explained to me the bail reform, and then why, why they have to release after they arrest, and
Not that I don't want to.
right. It's not that he don't want to, but I was very misinformed, and I know a lot of the community is because so many people said, well, the police don't do nothing about it. Well, the police can't do nothing about it. I mean, they can pick the person up, give them a ticket, but they have to let them go. It's not the police, and it's not Mr. Perfetti. So I think that the community needs to be more aware of that. The police, let's just say the majority of the police officers are trying to do their job, but they probably get sick of it too. Every day they're getting calls, and it wears on them. But
And that's why with more help with the addicts, a dealer can't deal without having an addict.
right.
So the more help you give the addict,
Right.
and the more support.
Yep, I agree.
I don't know if anybody else wanted to talk.
Yeah. I'll just speak a little bit about the bail issue too, because I don't want the wrong impression. I don't want to hold people in pretrial detention just to hold them in pretrial detention. But the change in the bail statute in 2019, I predicted later in 2019 in the summer. I said you're going to see two things happen. I said I hope I'm wrong, but I think this is what's going to happen. You're going to see fewer and fewer people seek treatment, and you're going to see more overdoses. So as soon as the bail law became effective, January 1st of 2020, that's exactly what occurred. We couldn't hold people in detention anymore, and what happened all throughout 2020, the numbers bear it out. I only had 7 people apply to come into treatment court throughout all of 2020. Normally I would have over 20 people come into treatment court. So it was less than a third. And of the people that came into treatment court, they were all DWI cases. I didn't have anybody who was involved with narcotics coming into treatment court. And that's a bad sign. That means I don't think there are fewer people out there afflicted by narcotics. In fact, I think that number's increasing with COVID, with people being isolated. That's not a healthy situation. So I think there's more people who have the problem, and there's fewer people seeking the help. Your coroner in August of last year had to go back to the legislature to get more funding for autopsies because overdose deaths had increased by almost twofold. So the numbers are real, they're there, and as I say, I hoped I would have been wrong, but unfortunately, I think I understand my job too well. So,
Can you just real quick share with them what you shared with me about the bail reform and how it ended up happening? Like, remember you were saying about how it was basically to clean up Rikers?
Oh yeah.
And then
Okay.
the DAs
Yeah.
weren't asked their
Right.
thoughts on it.
Okay, so yeah, a little history behind the bail statute. The real effort was really a downstate, metropolitan New York concern of people being detained long term for petty offenses in Rikers Island. Rikers Island is the city jail for the city of New York. So that being said, I never put anybody in Rikers Island. First of all, I don't put anybody in jail. I'm not a judge. I can't set bail. I can recommend bail. And I think I was pretty judicious with bail recommendations. So this whole effort was to clean out Rikers Island. it's effectively done that, but what are the consequences? The consequences are, we do have some people that should be detained pre-trial that aren't being detained. It's really impacted areas such as domestic violence, where people accused of domestic violence crimes are going right back to the homes where they've caused these problems, sometimes just an hour after they've been processed for an arrest. So I'm not opposed to sensible bail reform, and neither are my fellow DAs throughout the state, but that bail statute that was passed in 2019 was passed in the budget bills, where there are artificial deadlines, and the District Attorneys Association, the Sheriff's Association, the Association of State Chiefs of Police were never consulted. Our input wasn't sought. We would have given them the idea that these were problems that should have been addressed. There was a reform to that bill in July of 2020, which I think just goes to prove that the bill was flawed in the first instance, because they're reforming it only after 6 months. It still needs further reforms, and be happy to talk about that at some other time.
You got two people right here with this Danny True.
Hi, my name's Taylor. I lost my father in 2016. His name's David True. I'm just getting really sick of having to say goodbye to people, and my friends having to say goodbye to their family members. It just a little effort goes a long way. Like, we can all come together and just, let that person know, hey, like, if you need help, let's go do something, you know what I mean?
Good enough.
So the Angel program, that's the first time I've ever heard about that. I coach wrestling up at the high school with kindergarten right through 12th grade. And I know a lot of those kids have parents where, sports or school's their getaway from their parents being addicts, needing help. I don't know if the Angel group is up at the high school. That might be something to get our youth involved, because then when they get out and they're in college and they see their friends doing drugs, they have some resource to talk to them, get in their ear about it. I know there's kids up at the high school that are in 5th and 6th grade, and I have to bring them home because their parents are too sick to come and get them. Now, I'm not saying a 6th grader is going to call the Angel program about it, but they might be able to talk to a cousin that's older, who's more confident, knows more about it. So I'm just thinking maybe getting awareness in the schools, even with the teachers, because I know the teachers are they're not gonna say no, because it is a terrible problem. And like Taylor said, she's sick of seeing friends pass away, and it's just getting old. So I think getting the youth, even them getting their eyes on it, might help, as they progress into adults.
Take that for action. Are you going back to you? No, it's good. This is good. We'll...
Anybody else like to speak?
Somebody should close it out. More big than right here.
My name is Scott Heath, Sr. I lost my brother back in 2013 to a bad batch that was...
Jeff, can you put it up more? I can't really hear you.
Put it up here? We good now?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost my brother back in 2013 to a bad batch that came out of Auburn that killed a total of 7 guys. I ended up getting sober back in 2001. Before I forget, we were just mentioning lockup, jails, prisons, things like that. I've got quite a bit of a story I could tell over the course of the 20 years that I've been in sobriety. But to kind of sum some of those things up, when I was in my last drug rehab, I was on probation. I embezzled a bunch of money from the PNC over there on Homer Avenue, and that's what landed me on probation. My probation officer found out that I was using, and he gave me the option to go to a rehab. So I chose that rather than prison. I went there without the intention of getting cleaned up. While I was there, one of my friend's mothers came in and she threw a Bible at me. I didn't think anything of it. I went there with the intention just to do my 28 days, get out and keep dealing. That's what I did. I did it down here in the streets of Cortland, did it in the streets of Homer. I did it to my peers. I did it to people that are probably older than some people here in the crowd. It didn't matter. It was about the money. I understand the mentality that's behind that. That's the only reason why I'm saying this. Believe me, I do not boast in the person that I once was. That person is now dead. That person is dead because I am dead to sin, alive in Christ. When I was sitting there later that night in that rehab, I was thinking to myself how I tried outpatient counseling. I tried, the blue roof, as it was called. I tried AA meetings. I tried cold turkey. I tried. And I look over and I saw that book and I was like, all right, God, like for real, I haven't tried you. I don't want religion. I don't want any nonsense. But I know there's a good life out there. I'm just a 19-year-old kid. And I know if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to end up just like these people over here in this room, in that room, 56 years old. So to cut to the chase, I just grabbed that book and I opened it up and I pointed and I read, just as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. That's Proverbs 26:11. And it was like scales fell from my eyes as I understood, like, that was God reaching out to me, letting me know that he's watched me through every single phase of my teenage rebellion, the way I treated my mom, the girls that I womanized, the drugs that I pushed. It was an act of love that brought that woman to that rehab that day, that put that Bible in my hand, that took the hat off my head and started swatting me with it, saying, you better get things right or else I'm going to teach your parents how to show you tough love and you'll be out on your own. It was an act of love that changed this drug addict. It was an act of love that changed this drug dealer. Remember that as you go out there. There's, as Mr. Perfetti has already said, there's only so much that the police can do. Community watches are one thing. Whatever you choose to do, you choose to do. As for me, last year I became a licensed chaplain. I now have access to get into jails, into prisons, unlike ever before. For the last 5 years or so, I've been doing as many personal visits as I can when I catch word that, somebody that some of us know out on the streets, I went and I would visit them. And I would try to be by their side and so on and so forth. Well, I leveled up and I decided I would end up getting credentialed to be able to really just get in there and talk to people as a group. And I think my vision for the future is to buy a house and to turn it into a transitional home for parolees getting out. They may have had a problem with addiction and be able to, have a 1-year program. That's just an idea. If it manifests, then it does, But that's just an idea. It's just like a dream of mine. But for right now, this COVID thing's got me on lockdown. I cannot get into the jails and prisons. But if you know somebody, that might be in that state, that would want somebody to just talk to them and things like that, feel free to get a hold of me. But there's also you. You can be that one person. For less than $1 a day, I'm able to invest in an inmate who's able to call me every single day. He's called me every single day for the last 3.5 years. He's going to be getting out next summer. And he was more wilding out down here in Cortland than I was. So he's excited about what I'm doing. He's excited to come alongside and for us to really join forces and for us to go down and start knocking on people's doors and pull them out and say, yo, why don't you come over to our little study? And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm about. So if you want any part of that too, I invite you.
Your contact info.
Just being legit. What kind of contact info?
Email.
Email The Truth Project at Yahoo. DA Truth Project @yahoo.com. And again, my name is Scott Heath. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, go ahead.
We'd like to say thanks to...
First, this is Jim, for anybody that doesn't know him. This is Chase's father.
We'd like to thank Mr. Perfetti for speaking and educating us a little bit. I'd like to thank the Cortland Health Department, the Cortland Voice, and the Cortland Standard for...
The Cortland Standard was here to record. I thank you guys for coming. I know the weather kind of stunk this morning. It kind of warmed up a little bit. And we got a pretty good sized crowd. It rose. Erica and Ricky have been amazing. Erica's mother's helped quite a bit. So real special thank you to them. Ricky's been out here all morning trying to get this ready. So yeah, definitely guys, just keep the talk going. I know usually when somebody passes away, let's see, I was gonna do this.
It's okay.
The doc is there for a little bit, but then it dies, and I don't want it to die. I want to keep it going. I want to get this law enacted. And like Mr. Perfetti said, it's not going to be fast. It's going to be a year, maybe 2 years. But we can't just walk away and 2 weeks from now forget we were here and doing this. We need to educate our other family, our friends, our coworkers, and the more people throughout New York that we have involved, the better. It's not just Cortland. It's not even just New York, but we're worried about New York. So even family members out of town in New York, just educate them, ask them to sign up on the BentleyStrong page. I try to keep that updated. Also put other, stories out there from New York. I actually, Larie's aunt contacted me last night, and she's getting all Larie's mother's stuff together and sending it to me so that me and Mr. Perfetti have it to see, exactly what she did. So we're not reinventing the whole wheel. We can look at what she's done because she pushed for it, and unfortunately, it stalled on the floor when her mother passed away from cancer. So, yeah, I just want people to keep talking about it. I don't want you to just let it go, even if it's just checking on the page every day or adding stories, personal stories, that helps too. But again, thank you, Mr. Perfetti. I appreciate it. You've been wonderful, since I came to your office. Cortland Voice, thank you. You guys have been right on top of everything too.
You guys are wonderful for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Parents have not been engaging.
And thank the DJ because actually this morning, if you've seen my post, I said don't come here expecting a level 5 or I don't know. I don't even know how I worded it. And then Eric and I get down here to set up, and he shows up. He says, "I'm the DJ." I'm like, "We got a DJ?" She goes, "Well, I don't know. I thought he was just bringing the sound system." I go, "Well, we've stepped up to a level 3."